She took her daughter on a first Christmas date, but the single dad's reaction changed everything. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Autumn Reynolds was buckling 5-year-old Ruby into her car seat after kindergarten pickup on December 18th, when her daughter asked a question that absolutely shattered her heart into a million pieces. Mama, what does a daddy feel like? Like when they hug you, is it different than mama hugs? Autumn's hands froze on the seatbelt and she had to close her eyes for a second. Because Ruby didn't remember Daniel at all. She'd only been 1 year old when he died, and every single memory of her father came from bedtime stories and photographs on the wall. Ruby kept going in that innocent 5-year-old way, where they don't realize they're breaking your heart. Emma's daddy takes her for pancakes and calls it their special date. And Sophie's daddy came to Daddy Donut's day at school. How come I don't have a daddy to take me on dates? Autumn pulled the car over 2 blocks from their apartment because she couldn't see through the tears anymore, and Ruby's little face crumpled. I'm sorry, Mama. I didn't mean to make you sad. Autumn turned around and cupped her daughter's face. You didn't make me sad, baby. And you know what? You are going to have a date. I'm taking you on one. A real fancy one with nice food and everything. Ruby's entire face lit up like someone had plugged in Christmas lights. Really? A real date? Do I get to wear my fancy dress? And Autumn nodded. The fanciest dress you have. And I'm going to show you exactly what being treated special looks like, so you always know your worth. That night, Ruby took the whole thing so seriously it was almost painful to watch. She practiced sitting up straight in her chair, asked if she needed to wear lipstick because that's what princesses wore on dates in her movies. And Autumn had to leave the room twice to cry because her baby was preparing for a date to learn about a father she'd never remember. Across town, Lucas Grant was picking up his 5-year-old son Henry from the same kindergarten, and Henry's teacher, Mrs. Palmer, pulled him aside with concerned eyes. Henry drew his family today, just you and him. When I asked about his mom, he said, I don't have one. And I don't know what mamas do. I thought you should know. Lucas felt like someone had punched him in the stomach because, yeah, Henry had been 1 year old when Sarah died in that car accident. The same accident that had taken her and their unborn daughter, and his son had grown up with zero memory of the woman who'd loved him before he could even remember. In the truck, Henry asked in this small voice that killed Lucas, Dad, Tommy's mom brought cookies today, and she smelled really nice, like flowers. Do all mamas smell like that? What did my mama smell like? Lucas had to pull into a parking lot because his hands were shaking. Your mama loved lavender, buddy. She smelled like flowers, too. She would have loved bringing you cookies at school. Henry was quiet for a minute, then said, How do I be nice to girls if I never had a mama to show me? Tommy says his mom teaches him stuff. Who teaches me? Lucas made a decision right there in that Walmart parking lot that would change both their lives. I'll teach you. How about we go on a practice date, you and me? I'll show you how to be a gentleman, how to treat people with kindness and respect. Henry's eyes went huge behind his glasses. Like a real date with fancy napkins and everything? And Lucas laughed through the tightness in his throat. Yeah, buddy, the fanciest napkins in Asheville. We'll make your mama proud. December 22nd came, and both families were getting ready in their separate homes with no idea they were about to collide. Ruby stood perfectly still while Autumn curled her hair, wearing her pink tulle dress that was slightly too small, but she'd refused to wear anything else. White tights with one tiny hole she'd gotten playing at recess, in her little patent leather shoes. She kept touching the silver necklace with the moonstone that she wore every single day. Mama, is it okay to wear my magic necklace on dates? And Autumn had to bite her lip because Ruby called it magic, had no idea her father had given it to her 2 weeks before he died, before she was old enough to remember anything. It's perfect for dates, baby. You look so beautiful. And Ruby practiced her manners in the mirror. Thank you for this lovely dinner in her most princess voice. And Autumn coached her. Remember, someone who takes you on a date should be kind, should listen when you talk, should make you feel special. Ruby nodded so seriously. Kind, listen, special. I got it, Mama. And she had absolutely no idea that she was memorizing lessons about a parent she'd never remember holding her. Meanwhile, Lucas was helping Henry get ready, And his son had put so much gel in his hair, it was basically helmet mode. Wearing a button-up shirt and Lucas's tie that hung down past his knees, and he'd made a list in crayon that said 1. Open doors, 2. Say please, 3. Don't burp. And Lucas had to take a picture because Sarah would have died laughing. Remember, buddy, being a gentleman just means being kind and respectful, treating people like they matter. And Henry looked up at him. You think Mama can see me from heaven? You think she's proud? Lucas knelt down. I know she can, buddy, and she's so proud of the man you're becoming. They got to the Ivy room at 6:30, and the host saw little Ruby all dressed up looking so serious and said, well, aren't you fancy? What's the special occasion? And Ruby announced very solemnly, I'm on my first date. I have to use very good manners. And the entire host stand melted. 5 minutes later, Henry walked in with Lucas and told the hostess, I'm practicing being a gentleman so I know how to be nice to girls. And she had to turn away because it was too precious. Neither family noticed the other at first, too focused on their own practice dates. Autumn and Ruby got a table by the window, and Ruby sat so straight her back didn't touch the chair, folded her hands perfectly, and used her napkin after every single bite, like she'd been preparing for this her whole 5 years. Autumn asked, what did you learn in school today, sweetie? And Ruby's face lit up because someone was actually listening to her talk. Told her all about finger painting and her friend's hamster named Mr. Whiskers, and how clouds are made of water that floats. Autumn modeled everything she wanted Ruby to learn: eye contact, asking follow-up questions, genuine interest. And Ruby whispered, Mom, is this what dates are? Just talking and being nice? And Autumn felt tears coming. The best ones are, baby, when someone makes you feel heard. 3 tables over, Lucas was teaching Henry the same things, and Henry had very seriously pulled out Lucas's chair before remembering he was supposed to sit down too. Ordered his chicken fingers with, may I please have this? Thank you very much. And the waiter nearly cried. Lucas asked, what was the best part of your day, buddy? And Henry looked shocked that someone wanted to know, started talking about the blocks he built in the book about dinosaurs and how recess was fun, but Tommy pushed him, but he didn't push back because that's not what gentlemen do. Ruby spotted Henry first because he was the only other kid dressed up fancy, tugged Autumn's sleeve and pointed with zero subtlety because she was 5. Mama, look, that little boy is on a date with his grown-up too. Henry saw her pointing and waved. This big, enthusiastic little kid wave, and Ruby waved back even bigger. Autumn and Lucas made eye contact for the first time, and both smiled with this shared understanding like, oh, another parent doing this exact same thing. How sweet. The restaurant manager came over 20 minutes later. We just had a cancellation in our private family room. Would you 2 families like to share it? It has a play area and it's quieter for the little ones. And both Ruby and Henry yelled, yes, please, at the same time, and their parents couldn't say no to those faces. They got moved to a bigger table in a room with a small corner of toys and books, and the kids were instant best friends the way only 5-year-olds can be. No awkwardness, just, I like your dress, it's sparkly, and I like your tie, it's really long. And then they were giggling together. Autumn introduced herself. I'm Autumn, this is Ruby. And Lucas shook her hand. Lucas, and this is Henry. And Ruby announced with zero filter, my mama is teaching me about dates because I don't have a daddy. And Henry added like it was the most normal thing ever. My dad is teaching me gentleman stuff because I don't have a mama. Both adults froze and made eye contact over their kids' heads, saw the same grief and determination reflected back. Ruby's friends all have daddy-daughter dates. I wanted her to know what being valued feels like, Autumn said quietly, and Lucas nodded. Henry has no mom to show him how to treat women right, so I'm teaching him by example. They started talking while the kids colored on activity menus, sharing single-parent struggles in this weird, beautiful practice date idea they'd both had independently. And then Ruby reached up to touch her necklace because she always did that when she was happy or nervous. Just her little comfort habit. Lucas stopped talking mid-sentence and his face went completely white, staring at that necklace like he'd seen an actual ghost. Where did she get that necklace? His voice came out shaky and weird, and Autumn immediately went protective. Her father gave it to her before he passed away. Why are you asking? Lucas stood up so fast his chair scraped loud. What was your husband's name? And Autumn stood too, feeling scared now. Daniel Reynolds. What's going on? You're scaring me. Lucas sat back down hard and pulled out his phone with trembling hands. My wife Sarah made that necklace. She was a jewelry artist, and Daniel was her best friend. And he showed her a photo. Autumn grabbed the phone, and her legs nearly gave out because that was Sarah. Daniel's Sarah, his work wife, the woman he talked about constantly, the best friend he'd carpooled with to that holiday party 4 years ago, the one he died with on December 20th. They were in the same accident. Both of them said it at the exact same time, and Lucas's eyes filled with tears. Same hospital. I was in the ICU waiting room. Sarah went into emergency surgery. And Autumn whispered, Daniel was 2 doors down. I heard someone in the hallway crying. That was you. Ruby and Henry looked up from coloring. Why are the grown-ups sad? And Henry took Ruby's hand. It's okay. Grown-ups cry sometimes. My dad says crying is brave. Lucas's voice came out rough and broken. There's more about that necklace, about why Sarah made it. Can we talk after the kids eat? Somewhere private? And Autumn nodded because she couldn't form words anymore. 4 years they'd been connected by the same tragedy and never knew. And now their kids were holding hands like they'd known each other forever, and she had a feeling that everything was about to change. After dinner, they stood in the restaurant parking lot while Ruby and Henry played in the light snow under the watchful eyes of the staff through the big windows, and Lucas opened his truck's glove compartment with hands that wouldn't stop shaking and pulled out a small velvet box that looked like it had been opened and closed 1,000 times. Inside was a necklace identical to Ruby's, same silver chain, same moonstone pendant, except this one was adult-sized, and Autumn's hand flew to her mouth because she knew without asking that this was meant to match the one her daughter wore every single day. Sarah made 2 sets before she died, mother-daughter matching necklaces. She was pregnant when the accident happened, and Lucas's voice cracked hard on the word pregnant. Emergency C-section. The baby didn't make it. She'd been making this set for a daughter she never got to meet. Autumn felt tears streaming down her face. Oh my God, Lucas, I'm so sorry. I didn't know she was pregnant. And he nodded. Nobody knew except me and Daniel. She was only 12 weeks, wanted to wait to tell people, but she'd already started making jewelry for the baby. He handed her an envelope that had yellowed slightly with age. This was with the necklace, addressed to Daniel's wife and daughter. Sarah wrote it about 3 weeks before the accident. Autumn's hands shook so bad she could barely unfold the letter, and Lucas had to help her. And Sarah's handwriting was loopy and cheerful, and so alive it hurt to read. Dear Autumn and baby girl, Daniel talks about you constantly. You're my best friend's whole world. I made these necklaces for the daughters we'll raise together as best friends. I'm pregnant too, due in March. Our girls will grow up like sisters. But just in case something happens, because I'm paranoid about childbirth, I want Daniel's daughter to have hers now. Tell her Auntie Sarah loved her before she was even born. All my love, S. Autumn couldn't breathe, just completely broke down in the parking lot of a fancy restaurant, while her daughter played in the snow 20 feet away with no idea her entire world was shifting. She made this for me? She wanted our daughters to be best friends? And Lucas nodded. She talked about you and Ruby all the time. Showed me pictures Daniel had on his desk. You were her family. They ended up sitting in Lucas's truck with the heater running and the windows starting to fog up. And Lucas told her about December 20th, 4 years ago, how he'd been on shift at the firehouse when the call came that Sarah had been in an accident, how he'd gotten to the hospital and they'd rushed her into emergency surgery. Autumn told him about wrapping 1-year-old Ruby's birthday presents when the police came to her door, about getting to the hospital and being led to a waiting room where Daniel was already in surgery, and the doctors said it didn't look good, and Lucas's face went pale. I was in the hallway outside the surgical wing when they told me Sarah and the baby didn't make it. I remember falling apart, literally collapsing against the wall screaming. And Autumn grabbed his hand. I heard that. I thought someone had a TV on too loud. I heard someone in complete agony, and I remembered thinking, at least I'm not alone in this hell. I heard a baby crying, a little girl crying for her daddy, Lucas said, and his voice was wrecked. That was Ruby, My sister had brought her to the hospital. She was only one, but she knew something was wrong. She wouldn't stop crying. They sat there in that truck, realizing they'd been grieving in the same hospital hallway, probably less than 20 feet apart, both losing everything, and neither had known the other existed. Outside, Ruby and Henry were building a tiny snowman together, and Henry held Ruby's hand to help her balance. And both parents watched their kids through the windshield and cried harder. 1 week later, Lucas texted asking if the kids could get together because Henry asked about Ruby every single day. And they met at the Children's Museum, where Ruby and Henry were completely inseparable, holding hands through every exhibit, sharing goldfish crackers, playing in the pretend grocery store together. Autumn watched Lucas with Henry and saw patience and gentleness and teaching moments. Saw him get down on Henry's level to explain things. Saw the kind of father Ruby had been missing. Lucas watched Autumn with Ruby and saw warmth and creativity and encouragement. Saw her join Ruby in the art room and paint side by side. Saw the mother Henry desperately needed. Henry came up to Autumn smelling her sweater and said, "You smell nice like cookies. Is that what mamas smell like?" And Autumn had to turn away before the kids saw her completely lose it. Ruby asked Lucas, "Are you really tall or am I really short?" And when he picked her up and put her on his shoulders, she squealed, "This is what daddies do. This is so cool." And Lucas had to set her down and walk away for a minute because his chest hurt so much from the joy and grief mixed together. 2 days later on Christmas Eve, Lucas invited them to the annual firehouse party, and Ruby was obsessed with everything, trying on helmets way too big for her head, sitting in the driver's seat of the fire truck making siren noises. "Mr. Lucas, are you a real hero?" she asked with those big 5-year-old eyes, and Lucas knelt down. "I just help people, sweetheart. That's what firefighters do." And Ruby said very seriously, "Helping people is what heroes do." Henry brought Autumn a drawing he'd made, 4 stick figures holding hands labeled me, Dad, Ruby, and Miss Autumn. "I drew our family, see? We're all together." That's when Sarah's parents, Gloria and Frank, walked in and spotted Lucas with Autumn. Spotted Ruby wearing what they recognized instantly as their daughter's necklace, and Gloria's face went cold. "Lucas, who is this woman, and why is that child wearing Sarah's necklace?" Her voice cut through the party noise, and Lucas stood up carefully. "Gloria, Frank, this is Autumn Reynolds. Her husband Daniel was Sarah's best friend from work. They died in the same accident. Sarah made that necklace for Ruby before she passed." Frank's expression softened immediately. "You're Daniel's widow?" Sarah loved that man like a brother. But Gloria wasn't convinced. "That doesn't explain why you're here at a family event with our grandson. Sarah's only been gone 4 years." Autumn drove home that night shaken and told Ruby they probably shouldn't see Henry and Mr. Lucas anymore because it was too complicated, and Ruby started crying so hard she made herself sick. "But why, Mama? He's my best friend. Nobody else plays with me like Henry does. Mr. Lucas is so nice. Why can't we keep them?" And Autumn realized her daughter had smiled more in 2 weeks than she had in months. But she was too scared of Gloria's anger and the weight of all that shared grief. She stopped answering Lucas's texts as much, and he didn't push. Figured she needed space. Christmas Day. Ruby wouldn't stop crying, asking for Henry, and Autumn finally broke down and called Lucas. "Can we come over? Ruby's having a really hard day." And Lucas said, "Please come. Henry's been crying all morning asking where Ruby went." They spent Christmas together, and it felt like family. Felt like something Autumn hadn't let herself hope for in 4 years. And when Ruby fell asleep on Lucas's lap during a movie, he whispered, "She's the daughter I never got to have. I love her already." And Autumn, watching Henry curl into her side, whispered back, "He's the son Daniel always wanted." 5 days later, on December 20th, they ended up at the cemetery on the anniversary, both families visiting graves in the same place they'd been going separately for 4 years. Ruby placed flowers on Sarah's grave. "Hi, Auntie Sarah. Thank you for my magic necklace. My mama says you love me even though we never met." And Henry left flowers on Daniel's grave. "Hi, Mr. Daniel. Thank you for being my mama's friend. My dad says you were really good." The parents met between the graves, and Lucas said, "I talked to Gloria, showed her Sarah's letter about the necklaces. She cried for an hour, said she was wrong, and Sarah would want us happy. Autumn took his hand, standing there between the two people who'd brought them together. I'm terrified, Lucas. What if we lose each other too? What if something happens? And Lucas pulled her closer. What if nothing bad happens? What if we get the forever they didn't? What if we honor them by actually living? They kissed for the first time right there with Ruby and Henry watching, soft and careful, and full of 4 years of grief, finally finding hope. Are you boyfriend and girlfriend now? Both kids asked at the same time, and Lucas and Autumn laughed. Yeah, is that okay with you two? And Ruby and Henry screamed, yes! So loud people 3 rows over looked up startled, and Henry asked the question that mattered most. Does this mean Ruby's my sister now? And Autumn smiled. Not yet, buddy, but maybe someday, soon. 6 months flew by, and Ruby turned 6 in June, while Henry's 6th birthday was coming up in July. And somewhere between playdates and family dinners and weekend trips to the park, the four of them had become a unit that felt as natural as breathing. Ruby still called Lucas Mr. Lucas most of the time, but she'd slipped twice and said Daddy Lucas, once when he picked her up from a nightmare, and once when he braided her hair for school. And both times Lucas had to walk away and cry in the bathroom because his heart couldn't handle how much he loved this little girl who wasn't biologically his, but felt like she'd always been meant to be. Henry called Autumn Miss Autumn, but asked Lucas constantly, can she be my real mama? She does mama things. She cuts my sandwiches into triangles and reads me 3 books every night and knows when I'm sad before I even say anything. And Lucas would ruffle his hair and say, do you want her to be your mama, buddy? And Henry would nod so hard his whole body moved. One Saturday morning in late August, Gloria showed up at Autumn's apartment carrying boxes, and Autumn's stomach dropped, thinking this was going to be another confrontation, but Gloria's eyes were red like she'd been crying for days. I brought Sarah's jewelry-making supplies, all her tools and beads and wire. I think Ruby should have them for when she's older. Maybe you can teach her. And Gloria's voice cracked. I was wrong about you. I was holding on to my daughter so tight I couldn't see that you're exactly what she would have wanted for Lucas and Henry. She pulled out more of Sarah's journals, pages and pages about hoping her baby and Daniel's baby would grow up together like siblings, about how Autumn was the sister she never had, and Gloria sobbed. You're keeping my daughter's wishes alive, and I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't welcome in our family. They cried together on Autumn's thrift store couch, and Gloria said, Sarah's last words to me before that work party were tell Lucas to find people who need him. I think she meant you and Ruby. I think somehow she knew. 2 weeks later, Lucas made reservations at the Ivy Room and told Autumn to dress up, that he was taking all 3 of them somewhere special. And when they walked into that same private room where they'd met 9 months ago, Autumn knew exactly what was about to happen, and her hands started shaking. After dinner, Lucas got down on one knee, and Ruby gasped so loud the waiter came running, thinking someone was choking. Mama, Mr. Lucas is on his knee like in the princess movies. Henry was grinning so big his face looked like it might split in half, and Lucas took a shaky breath. 9 months ago, Autumn brought Ruby here to teach her what love looks like, and I brought Henry to show him how to be kind, and we found each other in the middle of our grief and our hope. And his voice was wrecked but steady, and he turned to Ruby first. Ruby Grace, I need to ask you something really important. Can I be your daddy? I promise to read you stories every night and hug you when you're scared and love you forever and ever. And Ruby launched herself at him crying, yes, 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 I always wanted a daddy, and I wanted to be you. Lucas caught her and held on tight, then looked at Henry. Buddy, can Miss Autumn be your mama? Your real, actual mama? And Henry nodded so hard. She already is in my heart. I just want it to be real. And Autumn was full on ugly crying now, mascara everywhere, not even caring. Then Lucas looked up at Autumn still on one knee with both kids wrapped around him. Will you marry us, all 3 of us? Will you let us be your family officially? And Autumn dropped to her knees right there on the restaurant floor. Yes to all of it, yes forever. I love you and I love Henry, and I want all of this so much. And the ring slid on perfect, and Ruby and Henry were screaming and jumping, and the entire restaurant staff was crying and taking pictures. The next few months were a beautiful chaos of logistics, lawyers for adoption paperwork, both kids legally becoming Reynolds Grant, with hyphenated last names, selling both houses and buying a new one together so it felt like a fresh start for everyone. Ruby and Henry insisted on sharing a room even though the new house had 4 bedrooms, said they'd been apart for 6 years already and didn't want to be separated anymore. And Autumn would find them asleep in Henry's bed, holding hands like they were afraid the other might disappear. December 17th, they got married at the firehouse with Lucas's entire crew there, and Daniel's family and Sarah's parents and everyone who'd watched them pieced their broken families back together. Ruby wore a white dress, and Henry wore a tiny tux that matched Lucas's, and all 4 of them walked down the aisle together holding hands because this wasn't just a wedding, it was a family being born. At the altar, they did family vows, and Ruby said hers very carefully because she'd practiced for weeks. "I promise to share my mama with Henry and be the best sister ever." And Henry said, "I promise to share my dad with Ruby and protect her always." And there wasn't a dry eye anywhere. Gloria and Frank sat in the front row, holding framed photos of Sarah and Daniel. "They're both here. They're so happy. This is what they wanted." And when the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Ruby and Henry both covered their eyes and giggled and yelled, "Gross!" And everyone laughed. 1 year later, they were a family of almost 5 because Autumn was 7 months pregnant with a baby girl they were naming Lily Grace, after both the women who'd brought them together. And Ruby was learning basic jewelry, making from Sarah's old supplies with Autumn's help. Henry wanted to be a firefighter like Lucas and had a plastic helmet he wore constantly. And on December 20th, they went to the cemetery like they did every year on the anniversary. Ruby left a bracelet she'd made on Sarah's grave. "Hi, Auntie Sarah, I made this for you. Mama's teaching me your jewelry stuff." And Henry left a drawing on Daniel's grave. "Hi, Mr. Daniel. Look, it's our whole family now, including the new baby sister." 6 years later, when Ruby turned 12, she got asked to the winter formal by a boy from her science class, and she was so nervous she could barely speak. And Autumn helped her pick out a dress while Lucas gave the boy the most terrifying dad talk in history. Henry, who was also 12, now went into full protective brother mode. "You better be nice to my sister or you'll have to deal with me and my dad." And Ruby laughed, but she was wearing the moonstone necklace for luck. Before she left, Autumn knelt down. "Remember what we taught you on our practice date? About being valued and respected?" And Ruby touched her necklace. "I remember, Mama kind. Listen, special. I know my worth because 2 dads loved me enough to show me." That Christmas Eve, they went back to the Ivy Room like they did every year. Now a family of 5 with baby Lily, who was 6 and looked exactly like Sarah in all the old photos. And the manager saw them coming and started crying. "The practice date family, you started our whole tradition of teaching kids about love." Ruby and Henry told the story to younger kids at nearby tables about how their parents met, teaching them what kindness looked like, and ended up falling in love. And the kids listened like it was the best fairy tale ever. That night at home, with all 3 kids asleep, Lucas and Autumn looked at their photo wall, pictures of Sarah and Daniel laughing at a work event next to wedding photos and adoption day, and the new baby and every important moment since. Autumn wore the matching necklace now, the one Sarah had made for her. 2 necklaces, 4 years of grief, 1 practice date, 2 broken families becoming whole. And Lucas kissed her forehead. Sarah's last words were, "Find people who need you." Daniel's were, "Take care of our girls. I think they planned this from heaven." Ruby appeared in her pajamas, holding both old photos. "Mama, Dad, do you think they're happy we're all together?" And Autumn pulled her close. "Baby, I think they're celebrating. Sometimes a practice date becomes forever." Autumn took 5-year-old Ruby to teach her what love looks like, and Lucas took Henry to show him kindness. Neither expected to find each other. Neither knew their late spouses had connected them years before through friendship and matching necklaces and a cosmic plan that survived even death. If you've ever worried your kids won't know healthy love, if you've lost someone and thought you'd never feel whole again, if you believe some connections are just meant to be, this story is your reminder that the people we lose still guide us toward exactly who we need. Hit subscribe if this reminded you that honoring the past means fully living in the present, that practice dates might just change your entire life, and that sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that almost never happened. Thanks for being here with us and believing that second chances are real.